Okay, welcome. It is Finance Friday. It's great to see everybody here tonight. My name is Jerry Fetta. I'm the owner, founder, CEO of Wealth Dynamics. And we are here again for another weekly Finance Friday course. I'm excited about tonight because we're going to talk about some of the basics, right? Now, what I mean by that is when we start talking about building wealth, we start talking about, how we achieve financial independence. We've got to start somewhere. And I think for me, that was, always a mystery because I didn't know where to start. I didn't know who to talk to, and I didn't know which concepts mattered. And so what I want to do tonight is I want to share with you some of the very beginning things that I learned that I still use today, that I still practice today, that you can use today as well. Right now, if you're tuning in, if you're on Facebook, Zoom, watching live, if you're watching the replay elsewhere, maybe YouTube, wherever else you might be, I want to give you guys a couple of ground rules we cover every week. So the first thing I want to cover tonight is, as we're going through this, removing the idea that money cannot be understood. Okay, this is something that's been marketed to us by banks, by Wall Street, by financial companies, that they want us to be their customer, and we can't be their customer if we understand money, right? So they have to build layer upon layer upon layer of complexity and things that we're not able to understand so that it makes them more necessary. Okay. And so I want to have us strip that away first, because that's going to be the thing that makes or breaks whether or not we can understand finances, is whether we believe we can. If we don't think we can, and we think it's up to the professionals and the high intellect and the sophisticated, then that's how it's always going to be. But for me, this was something that I picked up early on. I realized, this is something I could learn about. This is something I could understand. Right. So I want to make sure that we have that. The second thing that's going to prevent us from being able to apply some of what we're learning tonight is thinking we know it all. Right now, this is especially important if you're a client. Right. If you're a client of mine and you're watching tonight, you might have seen this, you might have heard some of these things before, and you're like, I've heard this. Great. But I want to know, are you winning with it? Okay. It's one thing to hear something. It's another thing completely to win, right? It's one thing to know that I should go work out and exercise to get in shape. It's another thing to actually do it. And it's another thing beyond that to actually get results. Right. So what I'm saying is, if I lack results, I need to look at, okay, what is it that I still need to learn? Right. Because something is apparently missing. Right. That's always been my mindset and my viewpoint. So that's the first two things I want to cover. The second thing I want to cover is I want to make sure that you have the mindset of being a producer tonight. You're here to use the information. It's very easy in today's day and age to be in content consumption mode, where we watch this video, we watch this course, and we watch this influencer, and we never have the intention of applying any of it. We're just dabbling in the information. We're basically like little information connoisseurs, right? And it's fun to learn things, but I want to challenge you tonight. If you're watching this, whether you're a client or not, my goal is for you to apply the information, right? Like, think about it. It's 10 p.m. on a Friday. Why are you here? You could be doing other things right now. I could be doing other things right now, but I'm here teaching, and you're here watching and learning because why? Right. So I want you to have that figured out. What is the reason why I'm here? What is the purpose? What am I trying to apply? What am I trying to succeed with financially with this information? Okay. And then finally, as you're watching, if you are not a client, one of my goals is for you to become one. The way to start as a client is to get a copy of my book first, Blueprint to Financial Freedom. If you go to jerryfetta.com/B2F promo, you can get a free copy of that. You can also reach out to Nano Aquino in the Facebook comments, on the Zoom comments, and he's able to get you set up with the link for that as well. Okay, so those are the things that I want to make sure that we cover tonight. And then really quick, it looks like we're having some technical issues with Facebook. So let me go ahead and share this out too. If you guys are on Facebook, be sure to share this as well. All right, just 1 second while I share this out. Boom, there we go. So without further ado, guys, I want to get into today's topic, okay? So as we're watching this, like, we're looking at building financial independence and building wealth. That's the goal. That's the focus of everything that I always talk about. And so with that, we have to really understand what that means, okay? So I want to start with, what is wealth? What is financial independence? Okay. And for me, financial independence, and I was doing a podcast interview with someone this week, and they were asking, because I said the words financial freedom, right? And the guy was like, I don't like this term financial freedom. And as I listened to him, he was saying, I don't like financial freedom because everyone has a different definition of it. It's very hard to measure. And so I told him, you're right. Okay. And we talk about this, right? We have this scale of freedom, and over here is more freedom, and over here is less freedom. Okay. And on this, like, we can have actions, behaviors, thoughts, mindsets that create more freedom in our lives, right? Financially speaking. And this is even non-financially speaking, like even in let's say intellectually or emotionally or physically, there are things that increase our freedoms, and there are things that restrict our freedoms, right? So there's over here on the more side, then there's over here on the less side. There's less freedom that's caused by certain beliefs, practices, mindsets, whatever it might be. Okay. And so with this, we have to look at financial freedom is not a concrete one and done state. Okay. I'm either further on this side or I am further on this side. Right. And so that's what it's always going to be is if I'm not, further on this side, I'm going to end up going back this way. If I'm going this way, I'm definitely not going to go backwards. Okay. Now on this scale, there is something called financial independence. Okay. We'll just do the acronym financial independence. Okay. Financial independence is an exact equation, and it's an exact moment in time. It's when my passive income exceeds my savings, expenses, and taxes. Right? So that's something I'm trying to get to, because at that point, what happens here? I don't have the obligation of trading time for money anymore. Right? Like, that's not something I have to do. I have the option. Okay. Think about this. Like if I have the option, isn't that more freedom? There's been times in my life where I didn't have the option. One of my stories is when I was, in my early 20s, my mom passed away of stage 4 colon cancer. She passed away a few days after Christmas, and I had to work. Okay. I couldn't get the day off that day. So my mom's last Christmas, I was slinging pizzas around, rural Alaska in my little car in the middle of winter, because I didn't have the option not to. That wasn't a choice for me. Right. So it's one thing to say, well, I would rather do this and then choose it. It's another thing to say, no, you don't have that choice. Right. Like for me, another one was when I started, being able to eat organic food because I could afford to. I didn't grow up like that. So when that became an option, I started choosing that option because it was something that I'd always wanted to do anyways. It's like, okay, now I can afford to do this. Right. And so achieving greater financial freedom in our lives actually does mean that we achieve greater literal freedom, right? Like if I want to get better medical treatment, I can afford that. If I want to eat organic food, I can afford that. If I want to live in a safer place, I can afford that. If I want to drive a better vehicle, I can afford that. If I can't afford that, that's not an option, right? Now, affording it doesn't mean that I borrowed money from a bank and then I'm making payments and I can cover the interest. That's not affording it. That's me going into financial slavery with a suppressive institution in order to meet my outcomes and goals with my life. That's not freedom. That's actually me trading my future freedom for a little bit of extra room today. I'm mortgaging out my future, essentially. That's what happens there, right? Me giving all of my money to Wall Street till I'm 60, that's not freedom, right? They might sell me that at some point that might mean freedom, but it's not real freedom. Okay, I don't have the choice. I don't have the option now, right? So these are all things that I have to look at and think about. Okay, so this idea of financial independence, this is what we're trying to build towards. Okay, the other word is wealth. Okay, further down here we have wealth. Okay, wealth is not an equation per se. Wealth is a state, right? So for me, wealth is abundance and prosperity in all dynamics of my life. Right? So what does that mean? That means every single area of my life, I'm living it on purpose and I'm in control and I'm exercising my freedom. Okay, I'm doing it the way I want to do it. There's not restriction. Okay, now this doesn't mean that my life looks the same as yours or yours looks the same as the next person's. That's the beauty of it. What matters to you, and can you afford to make that happen? Right? Like if you think about like living your life in every area the way that you want to, that's not going to be cheap. And it probably doesn't involve trading time for money at a thing you don't enjoy. Right? I talk to people all the time where the thing that they do for a day job isn't the thing they would do if they didn't have to. Okay, and in that moment, I am literally sacrificing my time, which really like represents my action, my freedom of choice, in order to get green pieces of paper so that I can make, make the mortgage happen or make the car payment happen or buy the groceries. Okay, that's not freedom. Okay, it's more freedom than, let's say over here, broke. right? Sure, if I'm broke, if I'm bankrupt, like that's less freedom than somebody that just works at a job they don't like. But I'm saying if we try and get as far as we can on the freedom side, okay? So when I started thinking about this became something that I was like, okay, like I want to get there. How do I do it? Right? How do I achieve these different definitions and states that I'm looking at? And that was where I got confused because there was so many different voices out there, so many different people saying to do it this way, so many different strategies, tactics. At the time, I was also a financial advisor. So I knew better than everybody the different options and different alternatives that could be used. And so I went into a state of confusion, right? Because I was like, I understand what I want to achieve. How do I get there? Right. So what I did is I started studying, right? This begins with financial literacy. Okay. When I say this word financial literacy, this means I actually master money. Like I studied, I became a student of finances and I started learning about it because it was like, man, like it is so involved in every area of our lives. It's foolish not to know how money works. Think about this. You go to school. Why? So you can get it. So you can go to college. Why do you go to college? So you can get a degree. Why do you get a degree? So you can get a job. Well, what do you get immediately when you're out of college before you have a job? Debt, right? Boom, right off the bat. Now you have a financial tool in your life that you don't understand. Now you're getting the job. You've got the income. As soon as you have income, now you owe taxes. Did you know there's a 6,000 page tax code, right? So there's 6,000 pages of rules that are associated with the thing that you went to school to go earn that you never learned about. Think about this. Like imagine like if another area of your life worked that way. You're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna have a kid. You would learn everything you could about having a kid. You would make sure you understood it so you could win at it. Why? Because you understand the gravity, the capacity of that decision and what that means and the responsibility that goes with it. Okay. Well, finances are not any different. And in a way, they're more important because have fun feeding a kid if you have no money. Right? I have to learn about this stuff. So for me, the first thing, and if you've not made this decision, for me, the first thing I did after I looked at, okay, what is wealth and what is financial independence and how do I get there? And what does it mean to me? The first thing I did is I made the decision that I would not be financially illiterate anymore. Okay. Coming from a financial advisor, I had a series license. I had the state and the federal and all this different stuff going on. So by other standards, I was financially literate, right? Like if I talked to a client, they're like, oh yeah, Jerry knows his stuff. Okay. But here I am just, selling mutual funds and term insurance and whatever else, right? So I realized as that person with those licenses, with that education level, that I was financially illiterate. Why? Because I didn't have the results I wanted. Right? I wasn't earning passive income on my investments. My clients weren't earning passive income on their investments. They were going up and down and up and down and up and down with the markets. So I made the decision that I would never be financially illiterate again. I would never be in a position where I didn't understand how money worked. Right? And so I want to challenge you, if you've not made that decision, make that now. Like decide it, because it all starts there. The decision thing is so powerful. You decide, okay, I'm going to start taking responsibility for my finances. Like some of you have done this with other areas. I remember doing this with my physical health. Like I was like, okay, I was a scrawny kid in high school and I was like, I want to start building muscle. I made the decision I'm not going to be the scrawny kid anymore. I'm going to start going to the gym. Right? I started, getting more into nutrition. I made the decision I'm going to start eating healthy. Right? I started building my business. I made the decision. There's lots of decisions with that. I'm going to hire people. I'm going to spend money on marketing. I'm going to learn about business. I'm going to learn about systems. It starts with the decision. And if I've not made that decision, then nothing I learn is going to matter because I've not decided it matters. Right? Like I can teach this over and over and over and over and over and say, here's the steps and here's what you should do. But if someone hasn't decided, then they're not going to do any of it. Okay. So it starts with that decision. Now, the second thing is once I've decided to understand the gravity of that, right? Decide, that word at its root actually means to cut off, get rid of the other options. So when I decided I'm not going to be financially illiterate anymore, I actually got rid of the option not to be. Right? That means that doesn't exist anymore. That's gone. Like the old burn the ships thing, that I burned the ships. Okay. Like any reason, any time that I would say, okay, well, I don't want to learn about finances. I did this, I read this, whatever. I was like, no, that's not an option. Okay. Because I have goals. Now, once I made that decision, then I started learning, okay, now that I've made the decision to not be financially illiterate, I can start becoming financially literate. I can start learning about stuff. right? Like this seems so simple, but I want to make sure you guys get it so we don't overlook it. We talk about things like the sacred account, right? We talk about how you can borrow against your life insurance to become your own bank. We talk about private lending. We talk about how to earn passive income, how to reduce taxes. That's all learning, right? So I spend the time learning. I watch the videos, I read the things, I go to the conferences, I do the whatever. But if I didn't first insert the decision that I'm going to apply this information and win with it, literacy would be evidenced by results, right? So if I didn't first make the decision, none of the stuff that I learn is going to help me, right? It might as well be Netflix. So this is so important. Now, here's the thing I looked at. So I made the decision, I started learning, and I started deciding who I was going to listen to. This is the next point. Okay. If you're taking notes on this, deciding who you're going to listen to. Okay. If I decide, okay, I want to be financially independent, and then I listen to people who aren't, or I listen to people who, they're working for some of the groups that are trying to prevent me from being financially independent. Right. Or I listen to, friends and family, no matter how well-intentioned they are, they don't think it's possible. They think it's a bad idea. And that's who I'm listening to. Okay. I'm not going to be able to get there. Okay. So who am I listening to? I decided I'm going to listen to the people that have actually done it. I'm going to go to the top 1%. I'm going to study them. Right. And so my thing was old, dead, wealthy. Those are my three qualifications of if I was going to study someone, they needed to be old, dead, and wealthy. Right? Why? Because I wanted to see a biography with a long time horizon. And I wanted to see start to finish, right? And I wanted to see that they actually finished with results. And then I could objectively study and look at what did they do. Okay. So I would read about people like Andrew Carnegie. I would read about people like John Rockefeller. I would read about people like the Rothschild family. I would read about, JP Morgan. I would read about all of these, the Vanderbilts, different families and different wealthy individuals throughout history, because I knew that I could get the information from what they did, not what they told me about, what they actually did, right? Like Warren Buffett, he's the king of this. I don't study Warren Buffett. Why? Because he's not dead yet. Once the guy dies, sure, I'll go study him, right? But at this point in time, when you look at Warren Buffett, a lot of the stuff that he tells you isn't stuff he does himself. Okay, he's the king of this. He's going to say, go put your money in an index fund, in the mutual fund, an S&P index fund. He doesn't do that. Okay, he buys controlling interests in companies. I've talked about this before, right? So I have to look at not what do these wealthy people say, what do they do? Because think about a billionaire. Like if someone is a billionaire, that's a big deal. Now, if they're a 50 billionaire or they're 100 billion, that's a lot of money. And so it means they are a master, literally like the best person, top 3, top 5 in the entire United States at getting money from people. Think about this, because you got to what? You got to earn, save, and invest. So if someone has a bunch of money in investments, that at some point they saved it and at some point they earned it. Well, how do you earn it? You get it from someone else. So if someone's a billionaire, that means that they're getting that much money from other people. They're very, very good at it. That's probably their number one skill set. So when I'm listening to this guy and I'm seeing his net worth, the first thing I'm thinking is, okay, this guy's a master at getting other people to give him money. So now when I listen to him, it's different. When he says put money in an index fund, why would that be? Where does he make money off of this? Okay. He's an investor in the market. He wants market displacement. He wants more people in the pool because the water rises, right? Most of the indexes that he tells you to buy, he owns controlling interests in. He owns the Coca-Colas, the Dairy Queens, the Geicos, like these large companies, right? So when I start looking at this, I'm like, okay, that's not who I want to listen to either. Right? What about the financial advisor, the guy who works for, Merrill Lynch or Edward Jones or New York Life or whoever, right? Like, what about that guy? Do I listen to that person? I was that guy, right? And I can tell you, for me, I automatically knew not to listen to them because I was that. I knew exactly how it worked, right? Like they're not calling the shots, they're not making the decisions. They're a sales and distribution force for banks, Wall Street, and the IRS. Right? Like that's, to me, conflict of interest is written all over it. So that's not who I want to listen to. Who do I want to listen to? I want to listen to who actually got there, right? So what I did is I spent 10 years studying these people, and there was a couple things that I saw in common, right? So here's the first thing. I'm going to draw some of these out. Every single one of them earned high income, right? Forget all the nonsense you hear about today about wealth inequality and you know, high taxes or whatever. There are people like Rockefeller, first generation millionaire, first generation billionaire for that fact. Okay, same thing with Andrew Carnegie, first generation, right? Like you look at these guys, they came to the country oftentimes with nothing, or they were born here, their parents were immigrants, they had nothing, and they went out and they figured out how to earn high incomes. They didn't have Facebook, they didn't have Instagram, they didn't have text messaging, they didn't even have airplanes, guys. They didn't have telephones. Think about how capable does someone need to be in order to get $1 billion without a telephone existing? That's an impressive feat. Like, think about the magnitude of that, right? So the number one thing we have to do is we have to have high income. Why? Because without a high income, I can't save, I can't invest. Now, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, like you asked me, hey, you know, like, how do you earn a high income? And I'd be like, oh, it's not possible because I didn't go to college, and I don't have a good job, and the economy's bad, and, you know, my parents got divorced, and all the reasons why I couldn't earn income because it wasn't real to me. Wait, right? Now, here's the painful fact I had to confront on the income. If I had low income, it's because I was internally exchanging. Okay, I cannot make money for myself, right? Like, it's not like a financial seahorse where you're like, oh, I can just pop dollars out my ass and that's how it works. No. Internal exchange equals low income. Okay, money comes from helping other people, which means if my income is low, apparently I'm not doing that enough. The more I do that, the more income I can get. It doesn't matter how you do it. There's no secret. There's not a secret industry you need to get into. It's not becoming a digital influencer, and that's the key. It literally, like, find someone that needs something and is willing and able to pay, and go exchange with them. Do the thing they need in exchange for the money, and do that over and over and over and over and over and over until you're really, really good at it, and you start making more and more and more, and you do enough of it that becomes something that you turn into high income. Guys, I started broke. Right? I grew up poor. Like, I had bugs crawling through my cereal as a kid. I was homeless at like several points in my life, right? So the high income thing was not natural to me. Okay, I didn't have an engineering job. I didn't work on the oil fields like my brother did. I didn't go to college, right? Like, I didn't have anything that made me prone to earning high income. And so I had to look at this at one point and confront, all right, cool. I spent too much time in the gym. Okay, I was a bodybuilder at the time. 3 hours in the gym, I don't get paid for that. Let's cut it down to 1. Okay, I spend too much time watching movies at the end of the day, Netflix, shows, whatever. Let's cut that down. Right? I spend too much time on my phone. Let's cut that down. I spend too much time sleeping in. Let's cut that out. Right? And all this time that I'm internally exchanging with things that I like, you know, I enjoy them. They're great, awesome, but they don't pay me anything. So I have to trade that out for something else. Okay, I was a pizza guy, right? So I wasn't going to get rich being a pizza guy. I had to figure out how to become more valuable and how do I get more external, not internal, external. I need to exchange that out, right? The word internal with external exchange. Okay. This one is very tough to confront because it literally is a form of selflessness. Okay. And the media won't tell you this. The news won't tell you this. The politicians won't tell you this because they want you to believe that those with high incomes are selfish. They actually have to be selfless. Okay, in order for me to get this kind of income, I have to be obsessed with the needs of other people, right? And of course, I earn income for that, right? But I'm always thinking about what others need. The more I think about what I need, the less money I'm going to make. That's the trap here. Like, people think, okay, if you're wealthy, you're greedy. Well, you can't be. Because if you're greedy, you're going to exchange with yourself. You're going to use your own time, right? And that's not going to generate any income. And then you're not going to get wealthy. So it has to be something we do here. Okay. So this was something I had to confront because I saw the incomes of the top 1%, right? We're talking, you know, in today's economy, I think the number is like $500,000 or more per year in adjusted gross income. That's not a small amount of money. Okay. That's to be in the bottom of the top 1%. You can go even higher than that and see people earning, you know, millions and billions of dollars in income per year. Right. So I have to then look at this and think about, okay, how do I get my income up? Okay. And it can't be something I'm picky about, right? If I work a job, the easiest answer is more hours, right? If I work more hours, I'm going to earn more income. It's not a hard equation. I have to be willing to put the work in. Because here's the tricky part on the income, guys, is we're trying to get passive income, but the route there is not passive. You don't get passive income from passive income. You get passive income from working hard with active income, saving it, keeping it in real stores of value, and then investing that to get the passive income. And you keep doing that over and over and over again. And you do that for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, right? That might sound like a grind, but I'll tell you what, like most people are going to do this till they're 70 and still not get free. Which one's really a grind there, right? So high income. And the one before this we said already was financial literacy. Okay. On the literacy point, I've told this story before. When I studied the wealthy, the denominators that I saw were they were all interested in finances from a very young age. That was something the board. In John Rockefeller's biography about him actually going on a date, buying dinner for the date. He's like 15, 16 years old, takes his notebook out of his pocket, logs the transaction right in front of her. 15 cents on a soda pop, boom, in the notebook, back in his pocket. At like 15, 16 years old, like this is not normal, right? That's an interest in money at a very young age, and not just in money for the sake of money. That's accounting. He's interested in how it works, not driving a Lambo and wearing a gold chain, right? So that's one thing. Another example, Andrew Carnegie, the kid worked, like when he was a little kid, he worked a job to help pay the bills for his family, for his mom and dad, for his siblings, right? That's an interest in income at a very young age. So we have to become interested in this stuff, right? And the sooner you start, the better. So high incomes is one of them. The second one is real assets, right? Again, I told you that I studied old, dead, and wealthy. Right. So we're not talking about, Elon Musk. We're not talking about Jeff Bezos. We're not talking about the Bitcoin guy, Michael Saylor. We're talking about people that they built this country. The buildings we are on, the streets we drive on, the railroads we're in, the planes we fly came from them. The phones we use still are branded in their names. The banks we use are still after their names. Right. And they died 100 years ago and their wealth is still around. Why? Because they own real things. They're not out there buying invisible stuff. They're not out there speculating. They're buying real things. That was something I could not get around. They were buying real businesses, real assets, real estate, gold and silver, right? Like these are things that are tangible. They're always going to be around. Like think about, just simplify it. Take out all of the financial jargon and charts. If I want something to be around 100 years from now, I'm going to pick something that already has been, right? Like you think about land, obviously it's going to be here. Gold, obviously it's going to be here. Life insurance, obviously it's going to be here. It's been around for 200 years. It's going to be here, right? I'm not looking at the newest development. Okay. Now on this side of things, like I might speculate on it if I'm wealthy enough. I might even make the market for the new stuff where I manipulate it and get the money out of it. But they're not like the ones that are like, this is the way of the future and I'm going to own this and use it. No, they're getting everyone else to do that while they do the other stuff, right? Perfect example. Right now, Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, they're buying farmland. They're selling the idea of you live in a computer world, basically like Sims. We're going to go own all the farmland, right? Like, okay, so if I copy that farmland, am I better off, or am I better off with, a computer game world? If the computer game world was so great, why are they buying the farmland? Think about it. This stuff is not hard to look at. It's not hard to see the difference between what's being said and what's being done. So own real assets, right? And most of the time they invested in things that are very simple. They're not investing in complexity. They're not investing in things that, they don't understand. They can't explain to others. They're investing in things they understand and that they know. Okay. A lot of times their first investment was actually in themselves. Okay, over and over and over. For me, that was it. I've spent hundreds and thousands of dollars on growing myself and my ability. Okay, whether that's my ability as a being, my ability with finances, with sales, with marketing, with being an entrepreneur, like that's always been my best investment. I just did another one this week, right? Like those are always going to be things that pay off, right? Outside of that, what about after that? My business. Okay, I have a company, so I invest in my company. I invest in my employees. I invest in marketing. I invest in systems and infrastructure. right? Those are things that are important to me. Okay, I also do a lot of private lending with real estate. That's a tangible asset, right? Like those are things that I look at. When I store my value, I store it, I save in gold, I save in life insurance. Okay. These aren't my ideas. Like the book that I wrote, Blueprint to Financial Freedom, this is based on the stuff that I learned by studying the top 1% of wealth. And I just put it in sequence. Here's what you do, and then the next step, and the next step, and the next step in order. And if you follow it, you're going to get a predictable result. Right? Like think about, like, it's a game we all play, finances. Right? Every single one of us is going to play the game. Almost nobody wins. So at what point are we going to say, maybe know what we're doing and we're following the wrong rules? .com/B2F promo. Like, we have so few people winning, yet all of us play the game. At what point do we look at it and say it's not working? Okay. Now here's the other thing that I realized studying the wealthy. Most of them at some point became a bank. Okay. Some of them, this was literally started their own bank. Okay. Same thing with JP Morgan, literally was a bank. Right. But think about it in our lives. How involved are banks? Okay. They touch everything we do. You get your paycheck. Guess what? If you don't have a bank, good luck cashing your paycheck. As soon as you put it there, what happens? Your mortgage payment comes out of it. Your car payment comes out of it. Those go to banks. Your credit card payments happen. Okay. You invest in a 401k. They use a bank. Okay. There's a bank that does the custody on the account. The Wall Street banks, obviously, they own the mutual fund companies, like everything. You go to the store, once you've got your money, you spend it on a debit card or a credit card. That goes through a merchant processor. That merchant processor charges the vendor a 3% fee, which also goes to the bank. When you save money, the bank loans it back out to other people. Your next door neighbor is borrowing someone else's money from the bank to pay for their mortgage, right? Like everything we do is involving banks somehow. And it's been like this forever. This is not a new thing. This has been literally for centuries and centuries and centuries and centuries and centuries, right? So they became banks. They started looking at, okay, either how do we literally become one, or how do we become our own bank? Right now, this came out last year. I'm gonna erase my notes real quick. This came out last year. Who remembers Elon Musk? They were talking about how he borrowed against his stock, right? So Elon had some stock, and he borrowed against. He took a loan against it, pulled money out from the stock via a loan, and that was something that the IRS and all the politicians were looking at, and because they were saying, well, this is non-taxable. And this is tax evasion, and it's a way that the wealthy skirt taxes. Guys, this has been around for a long, long, long time, right? The idea that you can borrow against an asset literally is what banks do. They borrow against their deposits, right? Like you give them the money, it's now their money. They put it on their books, they borrow against it, they loan it out to other people. That's how it works. The life insurance policies we talk about, they've been around since the 1800s. You borrow against them. Okay. Loans are not taxable because you can't tax something that wasn't income. If you take a loan from a credit card, that's also not taxable. When you go to the bank and get a mortgage, that's not taxable as well. So borrowing against an asset isn't taxable because it's a loan, right? Apple actually has their headquarters in Ireland because Ireland used to be a tax haven. They still, I think, residually get the tax benefits from it, but they basically set up their headquarters in a tax haven where they get massive tax breaks. And that's basically why they choose Ireland. And then they borrow against that to bring money back into the US to avoid the taxes. So this system of becoming your own bank basically looks like this. Okay, if I were to draw this out, step number 1 here would be buy a store value. Buy an asset or store value. Right? And then you borrow against it. And then you invest. Then you pay yourself back. right? Now, here's how this works. If we just sketch this out. So let's say I buy an asset like a life insurance policy. Why would I do this? Well, because it's going to grow at about a 3 to 5% annual rate, tax-free. Okay, I'm going to borrow against it. My cost of interest might only be 1 to 3%. I'm still earning the 3 to 5. Right? Like I want to make sure we repeat this, because when you take money out of a bank, for example, right? Like let's say you're a banker, right? And you take money, or you're a depositor, you take money out of the bank, right? And you basically, you're like, okay, cool, I want to go invest this now. You're not still earning interest on those dollars, right? Like you took it out, it's gone now. It's no longer yours. You can't earn interest on it and also have it there. Like that doesn't work that way. Okay. So when I'm looking at this thing with the life insurance, I do get both. I can put it in and I can basically still earn that 3 to 5% on it. And I can go use it for other things, just like I could with the bank when I withdraw my deposit. Okay. So I have to look at this and think about, okay, when I'm borrowing against an asset, this is the purpose of it. Okay. I want to have this spread of profit. 3 to 5 is what I'm earning. My cost is 1 to 3. Okay, so I have a profit spread there. Then I take this money that I've borrowed and I invest this and I earn, let's say 8 to 12% over here. Let's say I do a real estate deal, right? I was explaining this to someone earlier this week. They were like, well, why would I borrow? Well, what's 3? Let's say we split the difference. We make 4 here, we pay 2 here. Okay. What's 4 minus 2? That's a positive 2%, right? So if I don't do any of this, and I just go straight in and I invest, let's say, I make 12%. Great. Do I want 12 or do I want 14? Right? Because if I do just 12, that's great. But if I put it here first, borrow against it, make 2% on top, and also still go get the 12, I'm making 14. Right? And here's what we've got to look at. This is 2%. Let's look at what 2% is over the long haul. This is a long-term plan of building wealth, right? So let's say I've got, $1 million in an account and I make 12% a year on it. And I do that for 30 years. Okay. So, and this is a gigantic number already, but $1 million for 30 years at 12%, that's $35,949,641. Okay. Now that same million, if I make 14% instead of 12, 65 million. 2% a year is an extra 30 million bucks. Okay, we could do the same thing with 100 grand, right? So I have $100,000, I invest that at 12%, and I do that for the next 30 years. That's $3.5 million, almost $3.6 million. If I do it at 14% instead, it's 6.5. It's an extra $3 million, guys. This is not like, so looking at this goes back to financial literacy. Is it worth $3 million to learn about this? It's a no-brainer. Like, duh, it's worth $3 million to know this concept. Okay, if you're going to go do the million, it's worth then $30 million to know this concept. How much money are you going to earn and run through it? That's how much it's worth. That extra money you're going to make, that's how much it's worth. We charge a lot less to teach it. You see what I'm saying? So I have to look at this. Okay, good. This is the value of financial literacy. Okay, because when I was a financial advisor, this isn't what I was teaching. I was teaching people, hey, if you put money in your mutual fund, you'll have $3 million total by the time you're 60. And if you draw off, 60 to 80% of what you earn now, you can retire and you can be comfortable. Okay, this is generation changing. Okay, showing someone, okay, you get 100 grand instead of 3.5, I'm going to help you get 6. Just by this tiny little 2% number happening every year. That's life changing. That's an extra $3 million that person has that they're going to either, use in their lifetime, or they're going to help people with, or they're going to pass down to their kids, or whatever it might be. Okay. So becoming a bank is an actual integral part of this. Okay. The life insurance thing, I'll go ahead and name some people off. Okay. Walt Disney used this. Ray Kroc used this. Joe Biden has 6 of them. People ask me, well, what happens if politicians get rid of it? They're not going to. Okay. Joe Biden has literally 6 of these. He might have more. He doesn't remember, right? but he has 6 of them that we know about for sure. Okay, when COVID happened and they did those subsidy bills where they were like, hey, we need to do the COVID, subsidy checks for everyone and give people the $1,200. The end of the year in 2020, they released the bill. Mass Mutual life insurance policy lobbied to get a rider attached to the bill that allowed their clients to increase their MEC lines. What the hell does that have to do with COVID? Right? Like, these are people that have been, they've been in the back pockets, in the front pockets, the side pockets. They've owned the pockets of the politicians since the mid 1800s. It's not going anywhere, right? Not only that, but guys, there's value not only in what we're earning, but just the fact we're not losing money. You cannot lose money in one of these. You do a life insurance policy correctly. It's called high early cash value dividend paying whole life insurance. We call it the sacred account. It's guaranteed against loss. It's guaranteed to grow. It can't be taxed. It's protected from lawsuits. It's protected from creditors. Okay. It gives you privacy, right? It's a unilateral contract between you and the insurance company. It's also insured, by the way, at a higher level, a higher dollar amount than FDIC insurance is. Like, this is the safest place I can put money. So having, looking at the last year, we've seen people losing money left and right between the stock market and crypto. Just not losing money makes a difference. Now, if on top of that, I can grow it, and I can grow it in more than one location at the same time, that's even better. Right? But these are the kind of concepts, that I learned about and I put in the book here. Right? Now, this is great, awesome information. But the reason we call it the blueprint to financial freedom is if you were building a house, you would need to know the sequence of materials. Right? I could give you every single piece of material you need to build a house. And if I didn't tell you the sequence, you'd be screwed. Unless you were a professional contractor and you're like, oh no, I already know this stuff. No, like what do I start with? Then what's next? Then what's next? How do I make sure I did it right? What's the final thing I do? Right? How do I make sure that at the end, it's not going to fall on me when I go inside? Okay. These are the kind of things that we would do the house. Well, we need to do the same things with our finances. Like sequence, like the order correctly of doing things is not something that's talked about very often with finances, but it matters with everything. If I'm trying to, let's say I'm a car manufacturer, you bet your butt sequence matters. The order of parts that I use to build the vehicle matters. That's going to be something that's like chief of importance, right? If I'm building a business, sequence matters, right? If I'm cooking a meal, the sequence of ingredients matters. Okay, if I'm literally just like, learning how to live life as a human being, the sequence I go about my day matters. So why in the world would we not talk about that with finances? Right, guys, even with breathing, sequence matters. Breathe in, then breathe out. If you breathe out, and you never get the sequence right, you're going to suffocate, right? Very least, you're going to get brain damage from oxygen, deprivation. Okay, so I have to look at the sequence of my finances. Am I going in the right order? And if I'm not, here's how you tell if you're not. If you're not, confusion. That's the first thing you're going to have is confusion. Do you know what happens when people are confused? They don't do things. Right? So me learning about something and not applying it actually is a sign of confusion. When I have my finances and I'm like, okay, good. I want to become wealthy, but for some reason I never take action, probably because I don't know what to do first. And then once I take the first one, I don't know what to do second. And then third, it really is that simple. Once we correct that, right, I'm able to get it. It's the difference between a baby learning to walk and an Olympic athlete running is they've just mastered the sequence of their steps. And they've done it enough where they know, okay, here's, it's a pattern. I go boom, 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 and I can run now. Right? When I'm still learning how to walk, it's like, okay, I did the first leg. Now what? Okay, apparently I do the second one. I do the next one again. It's the same thing with finances. Right? Okay. And then the final thing that I want to go over, like with this, is the wealthy are perfectionists, not in the sense that they are procrastinating and waiting till the perfect moment to do things. No, they're obsessed with the process. Right? John Rockefeller, he was very into golf. Right? Very, very into golf. He was such a perfectionist, and he did this in his business too. But with golf, he would actually take pictures of his backswing, and you break it down in sequence of little tiny snapshots, where you'd see an inch and an inch and an inch, and he would pick apart his golf swing with the picture. So afterwards, he could see the exact movement, exactly where he messed it up, and what he needs to correct next time. Right? That's perfectionism. And again, he was producing with it. Like he was perfecting the system of his swing. in his business with Standard Oil, there's a story where, you know, they were using solder to basically seal the kerosene barrels shut, right? And so he looked at like, okay, well, I think we're overusing the solder. Obviously, that costs money. So let's figure out what's the minimum we can use. So he had them reduce it by 1 drop and keep running it through production until one of the barrels started leaking. Right. And once it started leaking, he knew that was crossing the line. He couldn't use that little solder. He needed to do 1 more dot and he'd be fine. So he did. He added 1 more dot of solder and the barrel didn't leak anymore. Right. That's perfectionism. Right. And it's in a profitable way. It's good. It's helping him. But the same thing happens here. Perfecting the process. Like I got it down so well, I perfected it to where I could write a book about it. And I want to challenge you to do the same thing. Like get it so well that you could write a book about it. Right? Like read this over and over, go through the pages. Like this isn't my stuff. This is coming from the top 1%. Right? Like this is something we already know works. It's something that's proven. So I want to challenge you, perfect the process. Be so into it that you're looking at, okay, like how do I get every single part down to a fine science? Obviously, there's a starting point. This goes back to what we said at the very beginning about financial literacy and making that decision. I'm not going to do that if financial literacy is not important to me. And I'm not going to do that if I hadn't made the decision that it's important that I'm going to do something about it. And then I'm not going to allow myself to be financially literate ever again. Right? So guys, what I want to do is I want to wrap this up. I want to open this up for questions. Again, if you have not gotten the book, okay, do so now. Go to jerryfetta.com/B2F promo. That's the letter B, the number 2, the letter F, the word promo, jerryfetta.com/B2F promo. You can get a free copy of the book, right? For free. You cover shipping. This also comes with a coaching call, okay, one-on-one with one of my teammates, and they will walk you through and help you and answer all your questions. Speaking of questions, let's jump into the chat and see what we have here tonight for questions. All right, good to see everybody. Avery said he was obsessed with double entry bookkeeping. That's correct. That's John Rockefeller Avery's talking about. So guys, again, you can get the book at jerryfetta.com/B2F promo. Okay, we have a success story actually from Brianna Shaw here. She says, honestly, the Sacred account is not only amazing and has changed my life in these past 6 months, but your course has been incredible and so educational. I hear you in my head every time before I spend a dime. That's awesome. Thank you. I'm glad you're having so many wins with that. She said, my only regret was not starting it back in 2020 when I first learned of Jerry and his team. Amazing. Lawrence is starting a Sacred account soon. Guys, on the Sacred account, don't wait on that, right? If you're starting one soon, just so you know, it's a process. We're helping you build your own bank. These insurance companies are making you a shareholder in their company. It's called a mutual insurance company. They're not just going to like let you sign up and be like, okay, cool, you're in. It's a process, right? So it's going to take you 2 to 3 months from the day you sign up before you actually have an account that you can fund. So think with that. If you're like, I want to start one soon, if your expectation is that you want to put money into it in the next 90 days, start it today. Right? Because if you wait, it's going to be 60 to 90 days from that day before you can actually use it. So start it now, get approved, get through the underwriting process. We will work with you. We've got your back. We'll vouch for you with the insurance companies. And we're able to help out with that side. Janice, can I set up a Sacred account using my child or grandchild's life for the policy? Yes. So with the Sacred account, it's life insurance, right? So somebody has to be the insured, right? It does not have to be me. So if I want to open up a policy where I'm the owner, and I'm borrowing against it, I don't have to be the one that's having their life insured. This is particularly important for maybe an individual that's older or they've got medical issues where they're not going to pass a medical underwriting exam, or if they do, they're going to get, a bad rate with the insurance company because of whatever reason. They can find somebody that they have insurable interest with, right? A spouse, a business partner, a child, a grandchild, whoever it might be, and they can insure that person. And I'm still the owner of the policy, just that person is who I'm using as the insured, and I can do the banking system with it. So that's definitely something that we can do. John Moss says, Jerry, you saying that I can borrow against my Sacred account and invest it in a real estate investment with you and double dip in my dividends? That's exactly it. Yeah. So if you have a Sacred account, you're borrowing against it, you're earning dividends, even though you're borrowing, then you can do a real estate deal or a private lending deal or whatever it might be. And you're going to double dip. You're going to earn that money on the real estate and also on the dividends. So that's exactly what we're saying there. All right, good. Let me check out Facebook real quick and see if we have any questions or comments there. All right, good to see you guys on Facebook. If you're watching, be sure to share. Andrew Davis, good to see you. Andrew's been making some massive progress on his blueprint steps. So way to go, Andrew. He's definitely leading by example in that category. Good. I think that that's all the questions we have. Let me just check Zoom one more time. And I think that is it. So guys, that's all we have for tonight as far as questions. Again, if you have not gotten the book, okay, go to jerryfetta.com/B2F promo. You can get a free copy of my book. You can get a coaching call. Sam asks, how do I start up? So Sam, get the book. Okay, go to jerryfetta.com/B2F promo. Get the book. Request the coaching call. Nano Aquino will actually call you and do a free coaching call with you and get you started. And a lot of times people start with the Sacred account. That might be the first thing you start with is, hey, I want to get this process going. And so my team will help you do that. We have an entire staff that's dedicated to servicing you and making sure that you're winning with the service, not only during, but also after with the back end implementation. So guys, I think that that is all we have for questions. I am going to go ahead and wrap it up here for tonight then. Be sure to tune in Monday. Okay, Monday, 4 p.m. Eastern time with Nano Aquino. Nano is going to be doing his Monday book call. I believe he's still on Liar's Poker. And that's a phenomenal book. If you want to learn about what actually goes on behind the scenes with Wall Street, right? Especially if you got money with them. If you got a 401k, if you've got mutual funds, you need to be on Nano's call Monday, 4 p.m. Eastern time. That's going to be on our Facebook page. Otherwise, guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. I will talk to you all next week.